she's actually just the right amount of okay looking, where it's like she's like camping hot, you know? Like you're camping next to her for 3 days, you might start thinking about it, but otherwise not really.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Shat the Movies, the podcast where we ask the question, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you even remember what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, then this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Gene Lyons, and alongside me are my two co-hosts, Ashley Schlafly.
Hi, y'all.
And the King Bee.
World-class breasts.
And together, we're going to take a look back in time and decide if our favorite films still hold up. Each week, the audience selects from 6 movie choices, and then we break out the race car VHS tape rewinder and watch the movie that tallied the highest number of votes. Or, like this week, you could jump ahead of the line by commissioning the movie of your choice. And to get in touch with us about commissions, just go to shatthemovies.com/support and find out how you can get the movie you want on the podcast. At the end of the podcast, the three of us will provide the audience with the number of wipes each movie would take to get off our respective bums. So find a comfortable spot on your sofa and accompany us for a journey through our vast VHS movie collections. You can download Shat the Movies via iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Pandora, TuneIn, Spotify, or wherever fine podcasts are found. King B, Ash, I feel like this is worlds colliding for me. Ash, who started out as a listener of the podcast, the King B, who I've been friends with since I was 15 years old. And King B, as I understand it, Ash is a big fan of your work on the pod.
That's wonderful to hear. I cannot fathom why. That makes no sense to me. When you first told me, I go, what? It doesn't even make sense. But no, I'm grateful to be a part of it, and I'm looking forward. It's a pleasure to finally meet you.
Yeah, same here. No, I think just cynicism, I think recognizes more cynicism. And I like the cynicism that you brought to American Gods for the start. And then, of course, I thought the coverage on Watchmen was just top notch from both of you. So I'm super excited because I feel like now it's like a full circle. I've gotten to record with like the whole Shat family. So it's exciting.
Thanks, Ash. And it's interesting in our responses to the coronavirus because Ash has been completely calm about it, despite like having sick people in the house, and she's totally cool as a cucumber. King B went out this weekend and bought giant bags of flour, giant bunches of meat, and a 10-pound bag of salt. So he's handling it well as well.
I've actually had like one or two kind of minor anxiety attacks when I would witness the run on certain products. I started predicting what might happen next as far as, what's disappearing off the shelves. You can't buy yeast on the shelves right now. Good luck finding flour. Salt I knew was going to be the next big thing, so I ran out and grabbed that. My poor lady friends had to put up with some pretty awful tantrums on my part. It's weird times, and I don't know how I'm going to handle it.
And let me just say, I'm heavily medicated. I've been taking my anxiety medication twice a day, like I'm supposed to, rather than every other day, which is like my normal state of being. But to King B's point, if you went in my pantry right now, I've got probably 15 bags of flour and a giant thing of yeast because I've been making bread from home because you can't get it here. So I get it. I get the anxiety for sure. I think I just come across as more cool cucumber than I am because of medication and really good scotch. So,
yeah, maybe I'm just underprepared here. Anyway, on to the movie. This week's movie is something that all three of us are big fans of, and it's brought to us by Commissioner Mac Edwards, who is a longtime listener of the podcast. He actually commissioned this all the way back during Christmas season. And so just so you know, if you do commission a podcast today and you want it for like your birthday next week, tough luck. It ain't going to happen. But we do appreciate all the commissions. And Mac writes in, since you already covered the movie I would have requested, which is Lost Boys, and that score hurt, I agree with you, Mac, I am always on the lookout for a movie to commission. Over the Christmas break, I was wrapping presents, looking for a movie to watch, and I came across Tremors. I hadn't seen it in years, and 2 hours later, not having gotten any wrapping done, I knew what I wanted to commission. Fortunately, the scheduled date is just a few weeks after my birthday, so I'm considering this an early birthday present to myself. Even better, my wife and son have never seen the movie, so we're planning on watching it this weekend. Rewatching Tremors reminded me just how close to perfect it is. The comedy is always on point. Everything has a setup and a payoff without being too obvious. The practical effects on a low budget help the film hold up today. And the casting is wonderful. It's one of those movies that you can put on anytime and enjoy, and I definitely think it holds up from when it was initially released. Growing up, my mom loved watching movies with me, and Tremors was pretty heavily in rotation and one of our favorites. My mom passed away when I was 12, so going back and watching some of our favorites always brightens my day. Thanks for doing the pod, Mac Edwards. And P.S., I am really enjoying this season's Westworld podcast. They keep me entertained on extra walks during these crazy times. Well, Mac, thanks so much for commissioning this movie. And thinking back, I think all of us had Tremors as a strong part of our childhoods. I don't know a kid who grew up in the 90s that didn't see Tremors, talk about Tremors, play Tremors out in the playground and out in the desert, if you lived in the desert. So I'm glad we were able to do this for you. And also, happy birthday. And also really sorry to hear about your mother. I lost my dad, not to compare the two experiences, but I lost my dad, and people always ask me if it was tough. And I said, well, no, I didn't really know him. I can imagine losing a parent at that age, specifically at 12, leaves a real mark, and seems like, you have a lot of love for your mom, and I appreciate that. Well, Tremors is a 1990 American monster comedy film starring Kevin Bacon, Fred Ward, Finn Carter, Michael Gross, and Reba McEntire. Tired of their dull lives in the small desert town of Perfection, Nevada, Repairmen Val McKee and Earl Bassett try to skip town. However, they happen upon a series of mysterious deaths and a concerned seismologist, Rhonda, who is studying unnatural readings below the ground. The film is the first installment of the Tremors franchise and was followed by 5 direct-to-video sequels. Tremors 2 Aftershocks in 1996, Tremors 3 Back to Perfection, Tremors 5 Bloodlines, and Tremors, A Cold Day in Hell. Also, there was Tremors Island Fury and a direct-to-video prequel, Tremors 4, The Legend Begins. A TV series titled Tremors the Series aired from March to August in 2003. The movie opened on January 19, 1990 in 1,457 theaters against no new releases and still debuted at the number 5 spot behind Born on the 4th of July, Tango and Cash, The War of the Roses, and Internal Affairs, grossing $3.7 million in its opening weekend. And then it dropped to number 6 on its second weekend, but managed to stay in the top 10 for 4 weeks before finally dropping out of the top 10 in week 5. Tremors ended up making money and grossing $16.6 million, but it was far below the projected numbers. So we always asked the question, King B. Ash, where were you the first time you saw Tremors, or what are your memories of watching this movie as a kid?
This one's a really weird one for me. I have no recollection of seeing it in a theater. I don't recall ever catching it on a VHS rental, but somehow I just know the movie by heart. I don't know if it comes from just, living in the desert Southwest, although this movie takes place in the high country and we were always down in the valley. It's just kind of one of those movies that I always just knew, and I can't explain why. I love it. It's a lot of fun. The sequels, not so much. Yeah, I don't know how, but I know Tremors.
How about you, Ash?
Yeah, I can relate to our person that commissioned because this is a really nostalgic movie for me. Growing up, my dad introduced me to a lot of films. He's a big fan of the horror and the creature feature genres. And I remember not seeing this in theaters. I actually saw it once it came out. We went to Blockbuster and rented it. But I think I was probably 8 or 9 at the time, but we've rewatched this probably hundreds of times since that first viewing. And when I look at this movie, I kind of instantly think about him. He used to make this fantastic instant mac and cheese, and we would eat it and just quote the movie. And actually, when I watched this for the pod, I wound up texting him. He and I watched it at the same time, and we're texting back and forth. So it was really nice. It always makes me feel like a kid, and I have really, really good memories of it.
Before the King Bee and I met, I had a best friend named David Schaefer, and I don't know what happened to him, and I don't know if it had anything to do with the King Bee, but David Schaefer introduced me to a lot of American boyhood. Prior to David, and I think we met when I was about, 10 years old. prior to David, I didn't really understand a lot of the aspects of like American kid culture. So like I would hang out with him and his stepdad, and they just introduced me to stuff like seeing Tremors. I learned about like going fishing. Like you could just do that. I didn't understand that you could just go to like the lake or the pond and just go fishing. It seemed very odd to me. I didn't know what a cabin was. I'd never seen a cabin before. And exotic foods like garden salads and dinner rolls. I had never seen anything like that. So this is all just a part of my life where I learn about things like small towns like Perfection, Nevada, and survivalists and guns. So it was a pretty cool experience with David, and it always kind of reminds me of that era of my life. Well, in honor of Mac, in honor of his mom, in honor of our childhood, and in honor of your dad, Ash, let's go ahead and get to Tremors. King B, roll that trailer.
Welcome to Perfection, Nevada, land of opportunity,
You know how close I am to leaving this place right now? How close?
where a man can make a clean living.
See, we plan ahead. That way we don't do anything right now. Earl explained it to me.
Hey, Mindy, what's the count?
640.
In Perfection, they say there's nothing new under the sun, but under the ground.
These creatures are absolutely unprecedented.
But where do they come from?
I vote for outer space. No way these are local boys.
How could they bury a whole station wagon?
Now this valley is just one long smorgasbord.
We can make it! Way to go, dude!
That's how they get you. They're under the ground.
What?
Damn prairie dog burrow.
We arm ourselves. We set perimeters. We stand guard.
Kevin Bacon,
We could get in People magazine.
Fred Ward,
People. Hell. National Geographic.
Tremors,
We decided to leave this place just one damn day too late.
Valentine Val McKee and Earl Bassett are handymen working in Perfection, Nevada. As they get tired of their jobs and leave for Bixby, the nearest town, they discover the dead body of Edgar Deems perched atop an electrical tower, still grasping his Winchester rifle. Jim Wallace, the town's doctor, determines that Edgar died of dehydration, apparently afraid for some reason to climb down.
So the opening scene of this movie is always so iconic, with Kevin Bacon, peeing into the canyon, and he's in that dirty undershirt and has that really terrible haircut. But it's classic. And I always smile when it first starts because I think it kind of sets up what the movie's going to be. But in doing research for this, I found out that the opening was supposed to initially be much, much darker than this. Initially, they were supposed to have the town drunk's mule being kind of eaten alive in this dark and like really gritty, almost horror scene. And I'm so glad that they changed it because I think that we'll kind of get into it. I think the beauty of Tremors is that it rides that line between horror and monster movie really nicely. And by changing to this opening, I think that it begins to understand what its genre is supposed to be.
I was really grateful for the daylight setting. It immediately reminded me of Midsommar, because I just think there needs to be more horror films or terrible, scary films that take place during the daylight hours. I love Valentine, played by Fred Ward. He's like the Last Generation's John Barenthal. He puts off that vibe. Kevin Bacon is the Last Generation's Kevin Bacon. You mentioned his horrible haircut, but I just thought to myself, that's just that guy's haircut. He's always looked like this dusty, dry sack of bones. He's got this weird, like paper bag colored skin stretched over a cardboard skeleton. He's the ugliest leaning man I've ever seen in a movie.
Well, let's not let Fred Ward off the hook, because this guy must have had a really rough 80s, because you see him in Time Rider and he was already looking kind of old. And we reviewed Time Rider recently. If you haven't seen it, it's hard to find, but worth checking out. If you can speak German, it's on YouTube for free. In Time Rider, Fred Ward already looks like he's in his late 30s, even though I think he's in his early 30s there. And here, I think he was in his 40s by this point, but I mean, he's looking pretty rough. I don't think either of them look particularly good, but yeah, definitely Fred Ward looks the better of the two. What's weird about Kevin Bacon, Ash, you mentioned that scene where, the movie starts off with him peeing and you see his backside and he turns around and I was like, oh, that's not a good look at all. I always remember Kevin Bacon being like hot. Like, this is the guy from Footloose, right? In this movie, I don't know, his nose seems kind of unnatural. His teeth seemed oddly spaced out. And like you said, King B, like his skin's weird. His eyes look like they belong on a different head. And I'm just feeling like a real weird Mandela effect. Like I'm not misremembering, right? This guy was a sex symbol of some sort.
Yeah, he was, but I also have never really gotten that. I never found him to be immensely attractive in Footloose. His stunt double in that weird gymnastics montage is a lot hotter than he is. And like you see the hot level go up when his stunt double's on screen and then it immediately goes down when like Kevin Bacon has those close-ups. But I don't know. I think he's charming though. I think that maybe is more of what it is. I think he's more charming than he is attractive. And I think he's pretty charming as this character. I really do.
Ash likes the rascals.
Rascals who can't hammer for shit.
Oh my God. Yeah, these guys cannot string a fence for shit. I watched that and I was embarrassed. I don't know what research Kevin Bacon did, but obviously it wasn't in labor. I understand the bar is set pretty low for these janky little nowhere towns, but this is just ridiculous. I got to wonder, how much labor can this town really need, and what's the pay scale for that sort of work?
Right. The fact that they keep talking about Bixby, I'm like, guys, get to Bixby now, because you could do this level of work in like Chandler, Arizona and make bank. Handymen are not cheap. I don't know when it happened where it just became that like anything you want to get done, they're like, yeah, it's like $100 an hour. You want it or not. And they seem to be the only guys in town, shitty as they are, that can do anything. You got the doctor and his wife trying to build a house, not doing very well at that. And then, you've got Heather and her husband, and apparently they've got a nice place, but I don't think they did any of that on their own. They just seem like rich survivalists.
I do think, though, that this town that they're in, I think that it's perfect. I mean, I love that it's called Perfection. The population only being 16 and then them having all of these like really stereotypical characters in it. You've got Val and Earl, and then you've got your obvious characters who live in a town like this, which are doomsday preppers. And, then you've got the lady who apparently is enough of an artist that needs her own pottery kiln, just that random artist. But I remember as a kid being immensely enamored with this idea of a desert. This probably was the first time, other than in Star Wars, where I had seen a desert of any kind that was, that filled an entire movie. And coming from New Orleans, I mean, I grew up in the bayou. Everything's wet there. You walk outside and you're wet constantly. So the idea of a place being super, super dry, I thought was really like exotic when I was a kid. And then when I finally went to a desert for the first time, when I was in my 20s, I felt like I was suffocating and actually literally got sunburned crossing the street. And so it was very different, the reality, but the locations always worked for me. And I think the wide shots of this town are really beautiful.
A lot of movies that are set in the desert don't ring true for desert dwellers. I'll watch them and go, okay, that's bullshit, but they really did nail who lives in towns like this. I was thinking, King B, of like Bisbee, and you could basically take the entire population of Bisbee and boil it down, and it is Perfection, Nevada. Like, there's bratty kids, there's non-white general store owners, there's the art lady, which is most of Bisbee now. You got your preppers, your handymen, your rich couples, and some guy named Nestor. Like, it all really feels like these towns that we have out here, and we've got loads of them. I mean, Bisbee is not alone in it. There's Sonoyta, Superior.
There's Superior, Tonopah, Bullhead. I mean, there's a lot of janky Arizona towns where people's cars just gave up and they said, all right, here it is.
But what's interesting about Perfection specifically is that it's not like they just took some town. I mean, they're probably cheap to film in, they'd be happy to have the business, and they didn't just accept one. In fact, the filmmakers had a vision for what Perfection would look like, and then they just built it. So like, if you look at like, Chang's hardware store, that's all built there. The trailers were all moved in. That town was entirely a set that was constructed in California, and the mountains in the distance, if you're wondering, are the Sierra Nevadas, and you can see Owens Lake in the background. what amazed me is that they put up this set and then principal filming was done over the course of 50 days. And that's it. And, Big D was talking about Time Rider and saying we should go easy on it because the whole thing was shot in 30 days and therefore it could have flaws. Well, that was shot in 30 days in the desert and the sets looked like shit and the movie was terrible. So I think this shows that, you can shoot a movie in 50 days and have it look great. Well, later on, an unknown creature kills the shepherd, Old Fred, and his flock of sheep. Val and Earl become convinced that a serial killer is on the loose and head back to town to warn the residents. 2 construction workers ignore Val and Earl's warning and are killed by the same creature, causing a rock slide. Val and Earl find the phone lines are dead, and the only road out of town is completely blocked by the rock slide. Out of sight, a snake-like creature wraps itself around their truck's rear axle. The creature is, however, torn apart when Val drives away.
So in this part of the movie, there's the station wagon scene. And that, for me as a kid, was always the most frightening scene when the lady especially gets sucked into the ground while she's in the station wagon. And watching this now, the wife's reaction is so me, where she's like, the generator gets sucked into the ground and she's like, okay, let's go to town. Let's get out. This is weird. She notices the situation and her husband is just kind of like, no, let's go investigate. And that's why he dies first. The same thing happens with my husband and I. We had a cabin recently and there was this horrible noise that sounded like a woman screaming and he went out to investigate and I packed up and actually left with the kids and didn't come back until he called to say he hadn't been murdered. And so I understand this woman's response, and maybe it's because I watched this movie so much when I was a kid, I learned from it, but this scene still, I think, played really, really well upon rewatch.
I might just be cut from a different cloth. And yeah, I've seen a lot of horror movies, but if I was out in the desert and my generator disappeared and the cord was like cut off and there was kind of a sinkhole looking thing, and then all of a sudden the generator got spit back up, the first thing that comes to mind for me isn't gigantic worms from outer space that live underground. I'd be like, well, that is interesting. What the fuck is going on here? So I don't know if I can't say it's a guy-gal thing. It's got to be something just, there's the people who die in horror movies and then there's the Ashleys that survive.
Exactly.
So what was the sound?
It was cats fucking. Yeah, it was these 2 cats. We literally were upstairs and we heard a woman moan and then scream, and it sounded like a person. And then we went out there. This property had about 16 feral cats that were living on it, and we were alone on 7 acres of land. And then when we went out later, when I heard the noise, I ran out with a butcher knife to defend my children because it was right by their window, and it was 2 cats having sex. You can tell we don't spend a lot of time in nature because this noise was very disconcerting, for sure.
So King B had a cat, Jake, God rest his soul. King B, was Jake, was he fixed or was he out having sex?
No, he was, God, he might've been asexual. He didn't even like other animals. He was a weird one. This is a cat that just did not care. If it had 4 legs, he wanted nothing to do with it. He wasn't very social. He didn't mess around. He patrolled the yard and we had our little territory and that was it. But no, he never brought any neighborhood hussies home.
He was like the Morrissey of cats.
Yeah.
Except a lot scrappier.
And the more you ignored him, the closer he got. All right, we're wasting time.
Well, but, when you were talking about, in this scene where the station wagon gets sucked down, one thing that I thought held up really well, and I hope you guys agree, are the special effects in this movie. And it's, of course, because of the total lack of CGI. It's all these practical effects. And I love that they use this puppet for the tentacles and that, you don't need the full graboid immediately. It's just some dust and the puppets with a little bit of slime and that really creepy country song, that Tanya Tucker song. It's so much better than CGI. And I would think I would just cringe if somebody tried to remake it, because today some Michael Bay Tremors would just be nothing but these CGI worms that would just look really, really shitty even 3 years later.
And it was smart of them to understand when they couldn't get an effect just right. We've seen so many 80s and 90s movies where they were committed to getting a shot, and that when that thing went into screening, they were not happy with it, but they're like, well, shit, we blew $1 million on it, we got to use it, right? In this case, they actually tried to create that scene where the station wagon is sinking into the ground and shoot it from the inside of the wagon with the dirt pouring in. It wasn't going well. The materials that they were using were kind of bonding together and not forming well. So they were like, fuck it. We're going to shoot it differently. We're going to have the just to see the headlights go into the sky. And that tells you enough that you need to know, again, with that Tanya Tucker song playing. One of my favorite parts of the movie actually is when they discover the station wagon. It's buried, and there's a song playing, and Kevin Bacon's like, "Oh, what's this golden oldie?" And one of my favorite pieces of Tremors trivia is that song is a 1977 country tune called "Drop Kick Me Jesus Through the Goalposts of Life." That alone makes me love this movie. That is the kind of movie Tremors is.
Yeah, I was almost moved by the shot of the two headlights pointing up into the night sky. It's beyond being really clever. I thought just kind of beautiful to watch. You know, one blinks out just a minute before the other. Even the sound design is great because the music that's playing in the night gets a little bit muffled. Here's my gripe. Where's all that slime coming from? I understand that underwater aquifers exist. There is groundwater and moisture there, but this is an incredibly dry looking climate. It's in elevation. It's a lot of really loosely packed, dry, dusty earth that they're sailing through. How do these creatures maintain enough hydration to generate that much saliva? I know I'm questioning the validity of a fictional biology here. If they hit an underwater lake, can they swim? Do they drown? How do worms breathe? I would love for someone to write in and fill me in on this. Smart people, help me out.
Well, smart person here to help you out. I did some research when I saw your notes, and worms do breathe through their skin. They don't have lungs, but they excrete the carbon dioxide through mucus that covers their skin. So they have to stay moist, right? That's why you have all those like dried up worms on your driveway, you know, if it hasn't rained in a while. But fun fact though, earthworms were actually not one of the animals that inspired the graboids. The filmmakers thought that they were too boring. And there actually is a whole graboid biology. There's this diagram online. And my favorite part is that the last stage of life for the graboids, they're actually called ass blasters.
I can't believe I forgot to even put this in until you mentioned it, Ash, because I've looked this up before, that they go from graboid egg to dirt dragon to graboid to shrieker to ass blaster. And in order to see all these things, you have to watch the entire series of Tremors movies. I recommend, as Ashley said, just go look at the online diagram. Don't watch all of these movies. But speaking of biology, another interesting fact about Tremors is that the original concept for Tremors was called land sharks. The writers who also wrote Short Circuit, which we do need to review, had to change the name of land sharks because in 1975, Saturday Night Live had a sketch with Chevy Chase, arguably his best role ever, where he played land sharks. Have you guys seen the land shark skit?
Mm-hmm.
Land sharks.
Yeah, he would walk up and then he would just tell them he was a plumber or a telegram or whatever. What I hate about these 1970s like Saturday Night Live skits is that they're so dumb and simplistic that when you explain them to someone, they're not funny. But when you watch them, they're still good. Arguably, again, I think people recognize this as like the golden age for Saturday Night Live. I'm surprised that they hadn't heard of land sharks yet, or maybe it was one of those things where it was rocking around in their brain subconsciously, and you know, land sharks just popped up. Ash, you mentioned the town residents in Perfection, and as we get back to town, you know, it's panning around and it's showing all these actors, and I saw a lot of familiar faces that I couldn't quite place at the time when I was watching it. So I knew they came from TV and movies that I'd seen, and I had to go back and just basically Google the whole thing and go down the line of the cast. The actors playing this town's residents include Michael Gross, who was the dad on Family Ties, Victor Wong, who was in Big Trouble in Little China, The Golden Child, and all Three Ninjas movies, Tony Gennaro, who was in La Bamba, and he was the bus driver in The Craft. But the big kahuna of all these, and I could not believe this, guys, is Melvin. The guy who plays Melvin, the kid, Robert Jane, he had roles in Perfect Strangers, Knots Landing, The Greatest American Hero, Saint Elsewhere, The Love Boat, Highway to Heaven, Murder, She Wrote, Different Strokes, Who's the Boss, TJ Hooker, The A-Team, Cagney and Lacey, Hill Street Blues, Walker, Texas Ranger, Baywatch, Iron Eagle, and of course, The Wonder Years. And he's always a brat in every single one.
Yeah, he's annoying as I don't know what in the Wonder Years. But what I thought was really interesting is that Michael Gross, the guy that you talked about who plays Bert, he was in Family Ties, and he actually started filming this the day after Family Ties wrapped. And I can't imagine a bigger change in both genre and experience than going from playing the dad on a show. We were a huge Family Ties household. My parents loved that show.
Same.
And then going and playing, you know, this role totally different.
Victor Wong as the shop owner, I think, really brings it. By the way, guys, if I'm ever bitten in half by a monster, don't try to pull me from the jaws of the monster. You're just making it worse. Like, there's no hospital in that town. You're not saving me. Just let me get swallowed already. Push me down into the jaws of the beast. Let's just hurry things along. You know, he pays Val and Earl $15 for that snake. And he charges $3 for a photograph with the snake. That dead meat, unrefrigerated, it's only going to be viable for 2 or 3 days tops. And he's got a potential customer base of around 15 residents, meaning he's going to make 45 whole dollars, minus the $15 he pays Val and Earl, minus the cost of Polaroid film. I think this is the real reason this town is such a fucking dump. How's this town functioning?
I mean, he's still making a profit. If you can make $30 a day off of other people's idiocy, and he probably owns Chang's, he probably owns the whole town.
Maybe. But again, there's no one's rolling through town. There's no gas station there. It's clearly out of the way enough. It's not like a thoroughfare or anything like that. He's going to make that money. The meat's going to rot. Like, this whole venture is going to dry up. And he's going through all this effort for, what's he going to make? Clear 10 or 12 bucks off of it? I'd just save the film.
Well, maybe that's the setup, though, is he takes those photos. It's kind of like Google, right? Google is not the product we are. The photos aren't the product for the people he's taking the photos of. He's going to sell those photos, right?
Yeah.
To the highest bidder. Because he knows he can't get the meat to somebody in time. So he's going to take a picture. He's going to sell it to the National Enquirer or to, National Geographic.
Aficionados of young children and tentacles.
Exactly.
All right.
Lots of them in Japan.
All right.
So Val and Earl borrow horses and come upon a buried station wagon near their trailer, but the owners are missing. An enormous creature, later named a graboid by general store owner Walter Chang, suddenly erupts out of the ground. Thrown from their horses, the men flee with the monster following them in pursuit. The eyeless creature crashes through the concrete wall of an aqueduct, dying from the impact. Rhonda Lebec, a graduate student conducting seismology tests in the area, deduces 3 other graboids are in the area. Rhonda, Val, and Earl become trapped overnight atop a cluster of boulders near one of the creatures named Stumpy. Rhonda grabs one of several left-behind fence poles of a nearby fence, and the 3 of them repeatedly pole vault to residual boulders to get to her truck, finally making their getaway.
The pole vaulting scene really stands out. It just looks incredibly fun. I think they shot it really well with having all 3 of them kind of move in tandem across the rocks. It's got me really contemplating the joys of desert survival during a monster attack. Have you guys considered survival tactics for monster attacks? Is this something that you guys are spending a lot of time on? I know it's kind of a hobby of mine.
I think all of us have considered like the zombie scenario just because it's been in so many movies and you just think about it. Would my house be a good place to be during a zombie attack? I've read countless articles of like what cities would be the best to be in if there was a zombie attack, or, if water levels would rise in the event of global warming or climate change, where would be the best place to live, the most viable place to live? But as far as giant monsters, never really thought about it.
Yeah, I mean, same. I mean, my brother and I famously have a very detailed zombie plan that we distributed to our family at some point that can also be used for multiple other scenarios. But giant space worms, no.
King B, I'm surprised that you liked the pole vaulting. This was the only part of the movie I didn't like. Like, yes, Earl's pole vault fail was pretty funny, but after that, it turned into like some weird like Sound of Music frolic. That synchronized pole vaulting with a wide angle shot, it just felt really goofy to me. But the boulders, I really enjoyed. Being in Arizona, and I love a good boulder. And I learned that the boulders actually sparked the whole idea. And the reason why a lot of this was shot with a lot of the desert on display is because the writers, S.S. Wilson and Brent Maddock, plus their director friends that got involved to kind of help out with the conception of this movie, they used to make safety videos for the Navy. Now, I don't know why the Navy needs safety videos made in the desert, but whatever. But one day, the 2 of them climbed a large boulder and were asking each other, like, what if there was something that wouldn't let us off this rock? And that's kind of how the whole idea for land sharks came about. And then it became, Tremors. But if people, like, I don't know, Ash, like living in New Orleans or people in the South even understand bouldering or climbing up on just boulders, just having boulders in your landscape, it's a really like oddly comforting thing.
Yeah, we have pebbles. I mean, that's about it. That's about the largest rocks. I mean, Monkey Hill at the Audubon Zoo it's the highest elevation point in all of New Orleans, and it's not even a hill, really. It's more like a mound of dirt. I had no relationship to that kind of landscape at all. I remember going to the mountains as a kid, but even the mountains we went to were the Smoky Mountains, so they're all green. They're not rocky. But you see, this is where my gripe comes in, because it's always really bothered me how Rhonda becomes the source of all knowledge. Like, okay, so it runs into the cement and she makes that comment about how like the black hairs are propelling it. And then she talks about how she's, quote, sure that there's nothing like them in the fossil record. And I mean, she's a seismologist. She would have absolutely no connection at all to this biology. And I think this is a big annoying point for me in the movie.
Hold on. You just told us about worms. You're not a biologist. Big D on the Westworld podcast is talking about computer processors and digital bottlenecks. If you guys can talk about shit, she can read books. She might have other interests other than seismology. I think Rhonda has every right to talk about worm hairs.
We don't know what her minor is.
Right.
I mean, that would be a pretty weird connection, guys. Like, and I guess it's just the certainty with which she talks about it. It seems like she was put there to be the every scientist, and different fields of science are not the same thing.
I'm going to take a more positive angle on Rhonda, which is that when Kevin Bacon was describing her, she's going to be legs up, they go all the way up, and blonde hair and blue eyes and world-class breasts. I was like, oh man, I hope she doesn't really look like that. And she shows up, she's got, the sun protector on her nose, the flipped up hat. And I thought, you know what? I'm really glad that they didn't pick an overly beautiful actress for this role. Like she's she's actually just the right amount of okay looking, where it's like, she's like camping hot, like you're camping next to her for 3 days. You might start thinking about it, but otherwise not really.
She's a solid 6 at best on her best day.
Yeah, I also thought it was interesting that when she takes her pants off at Chang's, her legs are shaved. I'm like, there is no way a seismologist grad student working in the desert near Perfection, Nevada has shaved her legs anytime this month. And that's okay. I'm not saying they need to. But I'm like, let's get a little reality here, Tremors. But Rhonda, the character, is played by the actress Finn Carter, who, Ash, you may know, is a fellow Tulane alum. Now, in her bio, it doesn't say that she graduated from Tulane, but she went there. And then her career didn't really get much better after Tremors. She did a couple other movies and TV shows. Most recently, last July, she was arrested in Vegas on one charge of possessing a stolen vehicle and 14 counts of possessing a credit card without the cardholder's consent. Now, before anybody overreacts, I should say that she claims she didn't know the car was stolen. Which is actually pretty believable. I mean, friends might loan you a car, or you might buy a car, somebody not know it's stolen, A. And then B, the credit cards were just happened to be in the car. So her court date was last October. I looked in the Las Vegas court record to find out what happened with this. And either Finn Carter is an alias, or I'm really bad at searching court records and need to have my journalism degree taken away. But I couldn't find anything on what happened in that case.
So, Tulane alumna, she joins our other illustrious alums like Jerry Springer and Newt Gingrich. So, roll wave there. But I think that what most people think of when they think of this movie is that scene where, Kevin Bacon screams, "Fuck you," and it's such a great moment. And when I posted that I was watching this on Twitter, like, I can't tell you how many GIFs of just that one moment came up. And what I think is funny, though, is that this moment almost didn't happen, because originally this movie had an R rating because of the amount of F words that were used. And they actually were able to negotiate a PG-13 if they dropped the majority of the language. And they negotiated this one particular moment. And I don't think it would have been as funny if there were, just fucks all around. I think that it's so much funnier with it just being this one, solitary fuck.
I totally agree. And the release was actually delayed 2 months to give them time to clean up the language. So it was supposed to come out in like November and ended up coming out in January. So over 20 or so uses of the word fuck were either cut or redubbed with softer words. And some of the examples are, like you said, Ash, some of the most fun lines in the movie. Like, "Can you fly, you sucker?" Or "We killed that mother humper." And the mother humper scene's great because they're doing it over the radio too. And everybody's saying mother humper, which I was like, this has got to be intentional. We might have overlooked those lines if they were left alone, but making it humper or sucker makes it so much more quotable. I think it's great.
I think it adds to the character's whole realism, really, because all these kind of goony desert dwelling people would start to kind of talk funny after a while. While you guys were talking about this, I actually Googled it, and you can only say fuck once in a PG-13 movie. You get one. You better use it right.
It's weird to me because working in a professional environment, when I first started, let's say in newspapers, I was like, oh my God, everyone could just drop F-bombs like crazy in the office. I didn't know that was a thing. Moving into the corporate world, I thought, okay, for sure here, people won't be able to drop it. Nope, you can still do it in meetings. You can do it like, you can't do it at like a board meeting, but you could do it in the office. You can say shit, fuck, bitch, pardon my French, and you can get away with that. Ash, is it like that in academia?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, not in front of students really, although some curse in front of students. But yeah, I mean, I have a terrible mouth. I probably have one of the worst mouths of anybody that I know other than maybe my husband. And I mean, I curse all the time, as does everybody. And what's really funny is when people get into really heated debates, that's when people, I think, probably curse the most in meetings. So
King B, how about in your line of work?
What line of work would that be, sir?
Jewelry making and kayaks.
Yeah. I do love a good swear word. I think the word fuck is always best applied with one or two extra vowels and consonants. Really, if you aren't saying it in 3 syllables, you're not using it right. So that's just the world I live in.
Well, after the 3 return to town, the graboids start attacking. A graboid kills Walter and forces the other citizens to the town's rooftops. Meanwhile, nearby survivalist couple Bert and Heather Gummer manage to kill one of the creatures after unknowingly luring it into their basement armory. In town, the 2 remaining graboids attack the building foundations, knocking over a trailer belonging to Nestor before dragging him under and devouring him.
So we really get a good look at the graboids here. We get to see him a couple times. And when I was prepping, I did some research that the designers, there was this original conception of what they would look like. And they kind of had like a turtleneck, and they really look like just big uncut dicks, like uncircumcised penises. And so they scrapped that to try to make it less phallic. But I don't know if they were immensely successful because they're still pretty phallic looking.
Yeah, I'm relieved I'm not the only one who thought so. Apparently, when they were sending like faxing drawings back and forth of what these things would look like, all the people working in the office were like laughing about it because they're like, "Oh, look, it's pictures of dicks." I'm glad that I'm not the only one who recognized it. And dicks are ugly. They're just gross.
You two are obviously coming into contact with some really weird looking dicks. Mine's beautiful and doesn't look anything like a graboid.
I can confirm that his dick is borderline cherubic.
It winks at you.
It does. No, it is like it is it's very clean and unassuming. Like it's just like, hello, nice to meet you.
It's got one vein, kind of like an arched eyebrow.
No, I mean, like, these are like disease-looking dicks, right? Like,
what are you doing with disease-looking dicks?
No, I mean, like, that's what it looks like, but it still kind of looks like a dick. Like, it just does.
Speaking of dicks, I also want to talk about this guy, Nestor, because in this scene when we're in Perfection and he starts getting killed at his trailer, I was like, who is this guy? Did you guys remember Nestor being, what does he do in this movie? Like, we know that we've got Mindy, she's the kid. You got Melvin, you got, the shop owner, you got the survivalist couple, you got the handyman, you got the art lady. Nestor's just there. Like, he doesn't, utterly unmemorable. I was like, what the fuck is the deal with this guy?
Yeah, you know what? Regardless of the fact that they give him 0 characterization, he still really tries to perform. And I'm going to miss him. I'm going to miss old Nestor.
Yeah, and nobody left it like a fucking hand to help him either. Like everybody else was like, come on, we'll get you. Nestor's just like, all right, see you, Nestor. It's been real.
Oh, that guy that's been in every scene is gone. Well, moving on. Yeah, you're on your own in Perfection. Kevin Bacon attempts heroism here and there. He does really let out that dead sprint to save Mindy on her pogo stick, but really it's just a full-grown man tackling a small child. As soon as he's taken away her only means of speedy conveyance, the monster gears up for a follow-up attack, and he just takes the fuck off. He doesn't care if Mindy and Mom make it to safety. He goes and doesn't look back. No one in this town is making sure anyone else is safe. It's just a mad dash scramble, save your own ass.
Yeah, well, and nobody's more of an example of that than Bert and Heather, right? Like they're where you want to be when something like this goes down. And with this whole quarantine, I used to think that they were crazy, and now I'm looking at them like, Like I just rewatched some of those Doomsday Prepper episodes. I don't know if y'all ever saw that on the National Geographic Channel, but it, tracks these people who are Doomsday Preppers like Bert and Heather, and I always thought they were fucking crazy. And now I'm like, wow, I feel immensely unprepared because I've shot a gun. I'm actually a pretty decent shot with a gun, but we don't own any guns. I can't fight other than, against the patriarchy. I can't physically fight. And I think that I'm really of little use. And what I loved watching this is that I've always loved the comedy with Bert and Heather. And I thought that also held up really well.
Yeah, when they're sitting there just unloading everything into that graboid, I was just like, hell yeah. And it just gets funnier and funnier, right? It's kind of like that scene in Pulp Fiction where Bruce Willis is going from weapon to weapon as he's trying to choose. They're using shotguns, they're using assault rifles. And my favorite part is when Reba McEntire dual wields the pistols, and she just looks like she's having a good time at that point. She's just unloading. It's like my spirit animal when King B and I go shooting out in Queen Valley. By the way, for people who ask about, us owning guns or liking to shoot guns, you got to understand that it's not like living in the city or living, even in other parts of the country like Ohio where it's flat. In Arizona, you can literally just hop in your car, drive into the desert. There's open use land and there's a mountain as a backstop. If you're not taking advantage of that, you're an idiot.
Coincidentally, I've probably watched more of the Tremors sequels than anybody else, following the notion that no one in this town really looks out for each other. We do know that in the sequels, Kevin Bacon and the scientist don't stay together. Bert and Heather split up. He's divorced by the second movie. Throughout the sequels, I think Fred Ward comes back for the next one. And Bert is a stable character in all of them, even back to the origins of the Town of Perfection in the Wild West. He plays, I think, a character in that one as well.
Before we move on to the next plot point, I want to just do a little PSA about gun safety. We see a lot of cool guns in Tremors. There's some assault rifles, as I mentioned, shotguns. There's an Uzi. And of course, there's that elephant gun, that giant ass 8-gauge shotgun with the impressively huge shells. As a firearm enthusiast, I appreciated this aspect of the film. But if Tremors gets anything wrong, it illustrates some really bad habits when it comes to firearm safety. People are spraying rounds all over the place in ricochet situations. And worse, people are repeatedly pointing the barrels of their guns at each other on accident. At one point, they're in the truck, and I expected Earl's revolver to discharge in the cab and create a Pulp Fiction mess of Val's brain. He's pointing the gun right at fucking Val, and they're just having a conversation. It's like, is something going to happen here? And thankfully, it didn't. But I think anybody who is into guns or has guns probably watched this movie and cringes at several points. Well, Val and Earl are stuck on a roof with Miguel. Earl, Rhonda, and Miguel distract the monsters while Val commandeers a cat track loader. While everyone's on their way to a nearby mountain range, both graboids create a sinkhole trap that disables the track loader. Earl has an idea to lure in the graboids and trick them into swallowing Bert's homemade bombs. This works on one graboid, but Stumpy spits his back toward the survivors, forcing them to vacate the rock quickly to avoid the explosion. With one last bomb, Val lures Stumpy to chase him to the edge of a cliff, where Stumpy plummets to his death on the rocks below.
So everybody's great in this movie. I think all the characters are really well done, but I think it's obviously the Val and Earl show. And I think that this last kind of, 5 to 10 minutes really show that. I think that Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward, they had amazing chemistry. And I also think that they understood the comedy of what they were doing in terms of it being this, being this creature feature. And I think it's probably my favorite Kevin Bacon performance. I don't particularly care for Footloose. So out of all the 80s and 90s Kevin Bacon, I think this one's the best.
Better than Flatliners?
Mm-hmm. And do you remember that weird one, The Invisible Man, he did in the 90s?
Yeah, that was troubling.
That one was terrible. I don't know. He's at, or what was the other one? Stir of Echoes. He's been in some pretty shitty movies and he's very charming in this and he's funny. He's actually really funny.
Yeah, I would say that this is the only Kevin Bacon movie for me. I got to tell you, man, these are the most unattractive leads in a movie I've ever seen. When Kevin Bacon kisses the woman at the end, think about the baby that those two are going to produce. That thing's going to come out the color and texture of wet cardboard. Just that weird monotone desert dirt. Ugh.
I have to agree with you there. It's never worked for me at the end. They actually originally were not going to have this ending. Originally, Val and Earl were heading off to Bixby by themselves, and test audiences hated it. They wanted to see the big kiss, and I think it's pretty gross.
Regardless of how unattractive some of these characters or actors are, the vehicles used in this movie, I think, in addition to the guns, were freaking beautiful. I once had a Dodge Dakota that later became the King Bees, and the King Bee had this legendary Silverado before that he really put through its paces, and a lot of fond memories with both those vehicles. And I think now we've grown older. We've graduated to some mom SUVs. I have a Toyota RAV4, and the King Bee has a Chevy Traverse. But this movie made me really miss old trucks. And just a quick rundown of what's in this movie. They've got a 77 Ford Courier, a 73 F-350. One of my favorites is that 89 GMC Jimmy. That looks fucking badass, that brown one. They also had the 1989 Mazda B220, which, by the way, 90s and 80s Japanese trucks, those like bare bones, like 2-seater compact trucks were fucking cool as shit. And I'd love to have one if anybody's looking for something to get me for my birthday. But of course, the best one of all was Val and Earl's 1963 Jeep Gladiator. That thing is fucking cool. Today's Gladiator, if you guys have seen it, it is a monstrous joke in comparison.
You know, you guys on a previous episode talked about like classic cars. Like when you think of, you know, the movies from the 80s and 90s, what cars do you think of? And you talked about like the DeLorean and other cars like the Jeep from Jurassic Park. But this is another one, that light blue truck, you know, with the V and E on the side of it. I mean, this is always one of those iconic cars, I think, that a lot of people forget about until they see the movie again.
Yeah, one of the things that did strike me on this rewatch, as Kevin Bacon's standing there on the cliff waiting and kind of playing chicken with the graboid, look how green and beautiful that valley below them is. It's this beautiful, vibrant, empty, wide open space. I don't know why this whole town didn't just move 15 miles north to that area. They'd be safe from graboids. It never would have happened.
As a former Californian, I know a pretty sad story about that entire landscape. In that background, it's Owens Lake, California. And it went dry in the 20th century after the water was diverted for the Los Angeles aqueduct. But recently it's gotten some water back. As of 2013, though, that big dry expanse is the single largest source of dust pollution in the United States. So it's looking better now. But there were times during the 20th century where that place just was completely, you know, bone dry in a pretty sad state of affairs. Also, fucking LA could have its water. They buy some of our water too, so you're welcome, California.
Yeah, that's really sad. I'm glad that it's left to look beautiful in this film, and I think that it's a beautiful backdrop to kind of wrap everything up. And I think one of the things I like the most is that a lesser movie, I think, would have totally given us the backstory of the graboids. They would have, you know, shown maybe like, you know, Little Shop of Horror style, you know, it floating down from the sky, or they would have explained where it came from, and they didn't. And I remember watching it the first time and thinking it was going to have that post-credit scene where like it was going to be the eerie music showing, you know, some sort of egg nest area, like, ooh, there's the baby graboids waiting to, you know, come out, and, you know, the ass blasters have laid their eggs, and, you know, they're gonna hatch soon. And they didn't do that. Now, of course, the sequels did this. I mean, the sequels explained everything away and took all the mystery away. But I love that it just ends and doesn't set it up for a franchise.
It's kind of like the beginning of The Thing. I hate that the beginning. Like, I love The Thing, but the fact that they show the UFO, you're like, oh, all right, well, I guess I know where this came from.
It's an alien.
What's going on here? Like, The Thing would have been so much cooler if it just opened up with, you know, in the snow, and you're like, oh, what's happening here? So anyway, I agree, Ash, and it's I honestly, I know King B, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the sequel has never really needed to be made.
No, it's here's the thing: is that you've got such a strong cast in this movie. I wish they would have worked a little bit harder to summon a budget to bring everyone back for a genuine sequel. I think that more could have worked, but I think they just took a shortcut and went to the direct-to-video route and produced some real garbage. It was real disappointing.
Well, now is the point in the podcast where we give our Shat scores for Tremors. Again, if you're not familiar with the Shat scale, 0 wipes is a perfect movie. It's a look straight down the clean bore of Bert's elephant gun. Not a single point of residue in the thing. Clean as a whistle. And 5 wipes is the slimy, phallic discharge from a graboid or ass blaster as it smacks into a cement wall. We'll start with you, Ash. What is your Shat score for Tremors?
So this movie held up really well for me. It still made me laugh, even though I knew the jokes were coming. I thought the special effects still looked pretty great. I think that Kevin Bacon's performance is really classic in it. And also, I love opening up a movie and it being an hour and 36 minutes. I think that the 80s and 90s did that so well. They knew how to pack everything in just right, where it doesn't feel long. And I felt like they pretty much used every moment well in this movie. I have a few issues here or there that we've talked about, which is why I don't think it's perfect, but it's still a really good time. Perhaps my nostalgia is, tainting my view here, but I do think it's one of my favorite creature monster movies. So I'm going to give it half a wipe.
How about you, King B?
I wrestled with this quite a bit, so much, in fact, that I forgot to put the notes in. I don't think it's an especially funny movie. The jokes in it are just kind of... they're just not there. The guy's saying Mother Scratcher and things like that. It's not funny. It's fine. The setting is done really, really well. The movie looks clean. It looks like it's shot on modern equipment. I don't know if that's just how my stream was coming through that day. But everything's there. It is really tight. It's like a little play that we're watching. It's got good daylight terror. It's got a good monster in it. The practical effects don't look too janky. I mean, there's 1 or 2 moments where it does clearly show the graboid being filmed in reverse as the tentacles are retracting from the monster. But ultimately, it's a good, solid movie filled with likable characters, and it tells a little story. I got to give it 1 wipe. There's just not much wrong with this movie.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, King B. If Tremors simply were a B movie, I'd probably take off a wipe for my score. But you got to remember that, as you said, this is different from any of the sequels that they made. Tremors, the original Tremors, was meant to be a blockbuster movie with star power. It had a proven writing team, and it had a decent budget. In 2019, Kevin Bacon actually said that Tremors only made a fifth of what they expected it to make over at Universal Pictures, right? And that's why they scaled down the budget for the sequels. You got to remember that 1990 had blockbusters like Home Alone, Dances with Wolves, and Ghost. That's the level of quality you would expect from a top release from Universal. And I think that Tremors falls a bit short of the mark in quality. It's very, very good for a B movie. In fact, it might be one of the best B movies that was never a B movie, but it's not really up to the quality, I think. However, I agree, Ash, it is fun to watch. It's what I would consider the ultimate baby's first horror movie. Like, if you want to introduce somebody to horror movies, this is the way to do it, right? Because it's still got all the elements, the jump scares, the gore, the suspense, but it keeps the mood light enough to not be scary. So, for me, this is 1.5 wipes, which, if we add up our scores, your half a wipe, Ash, my 1.5, and the King B's 1 wipe, that gives us 3 wipes divided by 3. That is an average Shat score of 1 wipe. And out of more than 150 movies that we've done so far, it ties Tremors in the number 22 spot with The Empire Strikes Back, Conan the Barbarian, Rounders, and Back to the Future 2. It is better than Toy Story and not quite as good as E.T. the Extraterrestrial.
That's a real thinker.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's fair.
Yeah, I think it worked. The system works.
Somewhere out there, Roger Roper is screaming, but too bad.
That's okay.
Thanks for joining me on this pod, Ash and the King Bee. Now's the time when we're going to do our shout-outs. Our shout-outs are our way of saying thank you for visiting shatthemovies.com, where you can find ways to support the podcast by going to shatthemovies.com/support, shop our store at shatthemovies.com/shop, or write to us at hosts@shatthemovies.com. You can also see past week's movies and future movies that are coming up. If you'd like to get your name read on the podcast, just go to shatthemovies.com/shoutouts and leave your name there. We'll read it on the pod. This week's shout-outs go out to Pencil D, Dick Anderson. Your girl gave me a hickey on my dick. Zachary Curtis, Roger's Proletariat Propaganda Hour. Opinions are like assholes. Everyone has one, so don't think your podcast and your shitty opinions are anything special, champ.
We don't.
Joey Howey, the Toon Dyna. Dustin, Gene Fecal Freak Lyons needs things to do in Denver when dead. Baker. I hate it when I sit down and my pants look like I have an erection. I feel like I'm selling myself short because I have a 10-inch dick erect, but these pant boners make it look like I have 6 inches max. Astoundingly average penis. I had something witty to say, but forgot it. Andy in Taylorville. Big D should consider himself lucky that his dick is in proportion with his body. I am 6'8", 340 pounds with a 4-inch dick, and I can barely see it, and it is laughable. For comparison, it looks like Gene's 2-inch dick on his body, and I know Big D and Roger have seen that bad boy.
This is why I don't do podcasts anymore.
Sade Violet. Fernando Tatis Jr. is a golden god. Guys, review Thunder Run. What the fuck is Thunder Run?
I don't know.
I think he meant Thunder Gun.
Nick Kerr. Why do I get the feeling that after you guys finish filming each episode, Gene cries himself to sleep, especially if Roger got cranky with him that day? Also, my friend Jamal Airrecka, who lives in both Arizona and Florida, said he has heard rumors that Roger and Gene are dating. Can you confirm or deny? It's 2020. The coronavirus is going to kill everyone, so be honest, guys. Shaniqua Franklin 056 at gmail.com. No, we both are in committed relationships, not with each other.
God, there would be some real domestic abuse if that were the case.
Hey guys, I'm seriously wondering how you guys gave Dumb and Dumber a 0 wipe movie, but have Tommy Boy as 2 wipes. Tommy Boy is far better and deserves 0 wipes. And I watched Dumb and Dumber last night on Netflix, and it's like 3 wipes for me.
No.
I'd go Tommy Boy over Dumb and Dumber any day.
Okay. The next one is this the same Dick Ebert that was caught on Dateline NBC to catch a predator in 2005? I don't think so. We'll have to look into it. And finally, Karen Duffy is hot as fuck in Dumb and Dumber. Well, thanks, I guess, for your shout outs. Those were the shittiest bunch yet. Thanks, everyone, for writing in. If you'd like to get your name on the shout outs, go to shatthemovies.com/shoutout. Put your name in there, and we'll consider reading it, I guess. Next week's movie, if you're wondering, is another commission, and it's about mentally disabled Carl Childers being released from a mental hospital where he has spent most of his life after murdering his mother and her lover. Carl soon forms a bond with Frank, a boy whose father committed suicide. When Frank's mother, Linda, lets Carl stay at their house, her cruel boyfriend, Doyle, tries to get Carl removed. Determined to protect his friend, Carl devises a way to save Frank from years of Doyle's abuse. The movie was commissioned by Greg R., and the release date was November 27th, 1996. If you want a hint, it was directed by Billy Bob Thornton and written by Billy Bob Thornton.
Also catered by Billy Bob Thornton with an original score by Billy Bob Thornton.
All right. Well, thanks, Mac, for commissioning Tremors. We really had a great time with it. That concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share it with a friend. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat the Movies. Also, we are now on Twitch. If you didn't join us for our Shappy hours, the first one went a little over an hour. The second one went 3 hours. 3 hours. You guys watched us drink and hung out with us. Don't think of it as a show per se.
No.
It's more like a chat, but the only thing to look at is us. So you can see, chat with each other, look at us. Anyway, you can. We are now affiliates on Twitch, so we're big time now. And there are lots of ways to help out by going and just watching, following us, subscribing. We'd really appreciate it. So again, that's at shatthemovies.com/Twitch. If you've never used Twitch, it's totally free. And if you have an Amazon Prime account, you get Twitch Prime for free. So you get like an automatic upgrade that's normally, I think, costs like $5 a month. So you're welcome. If you'd like to email us, you can email us at host@shatthemovies.com. And you can also support us by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, completing a free anonymous survey, or commissioning your own movie. You can find out all that information by visiting our website, shatthemovies.com. You can also check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we do TV series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, and Watchmen. And by the time you listen to this podcast, we're pretty deep into Westworld, but you can still catch all the back episodes. Just go to shatontv.com. Wherever fine podcasts can be found, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. And if you stop by iTunes, please leave a review. That helps the podcast grow. On behalf of my co-hosts, the King Bee, Ashley Schlafly, Roger Roper, and Big D, I'm Gene Lyons. Be sure to join us next week for the following movie.
In a few minutes, we're going to be in a room with a killer.
What you just want to know is what I'm doing in here. I killed some folks quite a while back. They told me I'm well from it now.
Why are you letting him out?
He's free. His time's up. That's the rules.
After 25 years, Carl Childers is coming back to his hometown.
Carl, see if you can figure out what's wrong with this thing. Won't crank up and everything seems to be put together, right?
It ain't got no gas in it.
Finding a friendship he never had.
My name's Frank Wheatley. What's your name?
Carl's my name.
Who's that strange-looking man behind you?
That's Carl. I met him at the laundromat.
Nice to meet you, Carl.
And a family he has always wanted.
Mama said you can stay over with us. I like the way you talk.
Well, I like the way you talk.
Just how retarded are you?
Stop it, though. Mama has a boyfriend. He threatened to kill her if she ever left him.
And you're gonna learn to live by my rules.
Doyle is a monster.
But when the darkness comes back into his life,
He's mean to you and your mama.
he's forced to make a decision he hasn't had to make in 25 years.
I'm gonna kill you deader than a doornail.
Starring Dwight Yoakam, John Ritter, J.T. Walsh. Written, directed, and starring Billy Bob Thornton.
Will you ever kill anybody again, Carl?
I don't reckon I got no reason to kill nobody.
Sling